Today, we're diving into the mystery of the Titanic shipwreck. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. During the investigation of the Titanic shipwreck, researchers noticed something strange and unusual. At the bottom of the sea, the front part of the ship was in relatively good condition, while the back part was in very poor condition, which is located 2,000 feet away. It's true that after lying at the bottom of the sea for over a century, iron and steel deteriorate. But if both sections were part of the same ship and sank at the same time, why was there such a stark difference between the front and the back? Researchers believe that on the night of the accident, something else happened to the Titanic besides hitting the iceberg, which caused more damage to the aft section. The question remains, and we will explore that in this video. In 1912, on the fateful night when the Titanic struck the iceberg, it was 700 kilometers away from Newfoundland, Canada, alone in the middle of the dark sea. At the time, there were a total of 2,240 people on board, of whom 1,500 lost their lives. The ship, once called unsinkable, quickly succumbed to the dark depths of the sea, overwhelmed by the power of nature. The only witnesses to this disaster were those who managed to jump from the ship into the frigid waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Everything that happened from the moment of the collision with the iceberg to the ship's sinking was known only to these survivors, who were themselves battling the icy waters. The first rescue ship, the RMS Carpathia, arrived an hour and a half after the Titanic had sunk. It was fortunate that they received the Titanic's emergency distress signal. Otherwise, those struggling for their lives in the freezing water might not have survived, and the world might never have learned of the Titanic disaster. During the initial investigation, no one knew what had happened to the ship. However, survivors reported that it had collided with an iceberg, and their accounts were confirmed when investigators saw an iceberg at the scene with traces of the Titanic's red paint still visible on its surface. After the accident, based on eyewitness accounts and evidence, it was stated in the investigation report that the iceberg had left a 300-foot hole on the right side of the Titanic, meaning that 1/3 of the ship's side was torn open. However, an eyewitness noted that it took nearly 2.5 hours for the ship to sink. Investigators questioned that if the iceberg had indeed created a 300-foot gash, the Titanic should have sunk in a matter of minutes, not hours. But the truth remained unknown at that time. To uncover the truth, it was necessary to find the Titanic. The search continued for many years, and with each passing year, the mystery deepened. Finally, after 73 years, when the wreck was discovered, it was a huge breakthrough for the marine industry. It was time to find answers to all the questions the Titanic had left behind. At a depth of 4,000 meters in the Atlantic Ocean, the wreckage of the Titanic lay in pitch-black darkness for decades. Several expeditions were launched, capturing countless photos of the shipwreck. Oceanic explorer P.H. Nargeolet, who visited the wreck over 30 times, never once saw evidence of a 300-foot hole. However, a profile photo of the Titanic showed a 30-foot section indicating that something had hit there. The affected area measured only 11 square feet, and calculations suggested it could have allowed about 370 gallons of water to flow into the ship every second. At this rate, the ship would have been fully flooded in about 2.5 hours, matching eyewitness accounts. Thus, one mystery was solved. There wasn't a 300-foot hole, but rather a 30-foot crack. But this was not the only mystery. There was still much more to discover. During the investigation, researchers struggled to understand why the front of the ship was in better condition than the back and why there was such a large distance between them. High-tech sonar scanning technology was used to solve this mystery. Remotely operated vehicles captured hundreds of thousands of images of the Titanic's wreck site, which were then converted into a 3D model using computer graphics. This model revealed details that no regular camera or human eye could detect at such depths. In the model, it was visible that all the decks of the 392-foot-long stern were nested within each other, as if it were a paper ship, not a steel one. Various parts detached from the ship were scattered around, and only 2 house-sized engines remained attached. There was another important clue hidden in this model, the clue that explained the stern's condition. When the stern hit the ocean floor 110 years ago, traces of its impact were preserved, visible only through the 3D model. These marks revealed that when the stern struck the ocean floor, it was rotating counterclockwise. Scientists inferred from these marks that the stern was descending at a speed of 80 kilometers per hour. The forces exerted by the water at such speed caused the stern's loose parts to break apart. Upon hitting the seabed, all its decks crumpled into each other. On the other hand, the bow section's design is hydrodynamic, allowing it to slice smoothly through the water, just as a ship parts water as it floats. This is why the bow was not rotating like the stern, nor was it as affected by the water's forces. Another mystery of an incident that occurred 110 years ago was unraveled. But one more question remained. When did the Titanic separate into 2 parts? As you know, an eyewitness reported that the ship broke into 2 before it sank. For years, it was believed that the Titanic split in 2 above the water. This report is partially true, but not entirely. When the bow section flooded, it went underwater, causing the entire weight of the stern to rest on a pivot point, the center of the ship. This point couldn't withstand the pressure and broke, dividing the Titanic into 2 parts. Yet, the 3D model created by sonar scanning tells a slightly different story. Yes, the equipment inside the Titanic was scattered widely across the ocean floor, including coffee cups, dinner plates, chandeliers, deck benches, and personal belongings. Approximately 90% of these items belong to the stern section, with more than 10,000 objects spread across an area of about 3.2 square kilometers. If the stern had separated above the water, its debris field would have been even larger than this. Experts now believe the stern broke off above the water, but only fully separated from the bow as it neared the ocean floor. While descending, it rotated and changed direction, landing roughly 2,000 feet away from the bow. Today, the body of the RMS Titanic is entirely rusted. Scientists think that at such ocean depths, oxygen is scarce, causing rusting to occur very slowly. However, samples of rust taken from the wreck revealed that the rusting was due to oxygen released by bacteria. Experts believe that at the current rate of decay, the Titanic's floors will eventually collapse onto one another, and in the coming years, the ship will lose its recognizable form forever. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon.